A 20-pound Maine Coon sat in Kennel 9 of Hartwell Rescue for 47 days. Returned once. Too big, too demanding, too much personality for a small apartment. The staff called him Duke, not because it was his name, but because he carried himself like he owned the place, and someone had to acknowledge it. When a 54-year-old construction foreman named Gary walked in that Saturday, every volunteer in the building watched. Gary had never owned a pet in his life. He was there to drop off supplies for a coworker. He left with a 20-pound cat under his arm and an expression that said he wasn't entirely sure how it had happened. What came next, nobody laughed about for long. Gary Malone was 54 years old and had no business owning a cat. He had spent 30 years in construction, managed crews of 40 men, built things that lasted. He was the man his crew called when something needed to be decided, the man his neighbors called when something needed to be fixed. He lived alone in Phoenix, drove a truck that had seen better decades, and had told anyone who asked that pets were a responsibility he had no interest in. He was not looking for a cat. He had stopped by Hartwell Rescue that Saturday because his coworker's daughter volunteered there and had asked him to drop off a donation on his way through. 2 bags of food, 1 box of supplies, 5 minutes of his afternoon. He was there for 40 minutes. Kennel 9 was near the back, past the kittens and the smaller cats, in the section where the larger animals were kept. Duke was sitting upright in the center of his kennel when Gary walked past, not curled up, not hiding, not performing, just sitting, like he was waiting for a meeting to begin and the other party was late. Gary stopped. Duke looked at him, not away, not around him, directly at him with the focused assessment of an animal that has already made a decision and is simply waiting for the paperwork to catch up. Gary asked the volunteer how long. 47 days. He asked about the return. One family, small apartment, said he took up too much space, too much presence. Gary looked at Duke. Duke looked at Gary. Then Duke stood up, walked to the front of the kennel, and head-butted the door. Not gently, firmly, the way you knock on a door when you mean it. Gary signed the papers 20 minutes later. His coworker found out the next day and laughed for approximately 3 minutes straight. His crew heard about it by Monday morning. The jokes lasted 2 weeks. Gary didn't say much about it. He just brought Duke home. The first night was not what Gary expected. He had set up a bed in the corner of the living room, bought food recommended by the rescue, prepared what he understood to be a reasonable cat environment. Duke walked past all of it, jumped onto the couch, walked across it with the deliberate authority of a building inspector, and sat down directly in the center. Then he looked at Gary and waited. Gary sat on the edge of his own couch for the rest of the evening. By day 3, Duke had conducted a thorough assessment of the house. Every room, every surface, every corner. He had identified the best window for morning light and claimed it. He had located the warmest spot in the kitchen and designated it his afternoon position. He had inspected Gary's pillow, the specific one Gary slept on, and determined that it was acceptable for occasional use. Gary started sleeping on the other side of the bed. You're still watching but haven't subscribed yet? Duke is looking at you right now. He has opinions about this. Hit subscribe. Don't disappoint a 20-pound Maine Coon. Here is something most people don't know about Maine Coons. They are the largest domestic cat breed in the world, regularly reaching 20 to 25 pounds. But size is not what sets them apart. Maine Coons bond with one person deeply and completely. They follow, they track, they position themselves wherever their person is, not because they need something, but because proximity is the point. Duke had identified Gary as his person within 4 hours of arriving. Everything after that was logistics. 3 weeks in, Gary had a bad Thursday. A project he had been managing for 8 months hit a structural problem that should have been caught 6 weeks earlier. He spent the day in meetings that went nowhere, made calls that solved nothing, and drove home at 6:47 p.m. with the particular exhaustion of someone who has been in charge of a problem all day without being able to fix it. He came in, dropped his keys on the kitchen counter, and sat down at the table.
Not the couch, the table, with nothing in front of him. No phone, no television, nothing. Just the table and the quiet of a house that didn't know what kind of day he'd had. Duke came in from the living room. He didn't meow, he didn't circle, he jumped onto the table. All 20 pounds of him, landing with more weight than expected, walked directly to Gary and pressed his entire body against Gary's chest. Chin on his shoulder, eyes closed, purring with the low, steady frequency of something that has no interest in the situation, but complete interest in the person. Gary sat there for 38 minutes with a 20-pound cat on his chest and didn't move. When he finally got up to make dinner, Duke jumped down, walked to his bowl, and sat beside it with an expression that indicated he too was ready to move on. Gary told exactly one person about that evening, his coworker, who did not laugh. Stories like this remind us why certain animals find certain people. If this one is landing right now, you know why. The months became a life. Duke learned Gary's schedule thoroughly and without being told twice. He was at the door when Gary came home, not with the frantic energy of a dog, but with the composed attention of someone who had been tracking the time and found the arrival satisfactory. Every evening, without exception, he walked across whatever Gary was reading, newspaper, phone, tablet, placed one large paw in the center, and sat down. Gary stopped fighting it after day 11. He started leaving the newspaper open to a page Duke would find interesting. He didn't examine why. Some habits don't need explaining. Today, Duke is 3 years old. He still owns the couch. He still takes Gary's pillow most nights. He still walks across whatever Gary is reading, and Gary still leaves it open like an invitation. Gary's crew eventually stopped making jokes. Nothing was said, but Gary would mention something Duke had done in the same tone he used for load-bearing calculations, and after a while, the crew understood this was simply part of how Gary talked now. It suited him, they decided, better than they expected. One of his younger workers got a cat 6 months later. He texted Gary a photo, a small tabby on his chest while he tried to read. Gary sent back 2 words. They do that. Not every person who needs a cat knows it. Some of them are 54 years old, standing in a rescue with 2 bags of donated food and 5 minutes to spare, and a 20-pound Maine Coon is headbutting the door at them like a contractor with a schedule to keep. Some things know what they're doing before you do. If you are thinking about adopting a cat others called too much, understand that sometimes that is exactly what you need. Not something small and quiet, something that finds you in every room and sits on whatever you are reading and purrs at 6:47 p.m. on a Thursday when nothing else is working. Did Duke choose Gary, or did Gary choose Duke? Tell me in the comments.